1945, and soon afterwards, World War II ended. A new conflict arose between the two superpowers, America and Russia, known as the Cold War. Russia extended its reign from Moscow to Berlin, and this rule was known as the Iron Curtain. This consisted of most of the East European countries. The Cold War consisted of the space race, initiated by the Russians, the arms race, emphasizing nuclear weaponry, and the technological race, based on inventions. After World War II, Germany was divided into East and West. The Allies got the west part of Germany, and the East went to the Soviet Union. A physical division was made between East and West, known as the Berlin Wall, creating tension in Europe. Relationships between the Soviet Union and America worsened even further with the creation of NATO and the Warsaw Pact. NATO was dominated by the United States, and the Warsaw Pact was dominated mainly by the Soviet Union. These two superpowers did not actually fight directly, but supported opposite sides and kept an eye on one another. One example was the Korean War. The North, supported by the Soviet Union, launched a massive invasion on the democratic South. There was a dividing line that separated communist and capitalist land, called the 30th parallel. Douglas MacArthur was a commanding officer of the South. The Chinese played a major role in swaying the war, as North Korea would have suffered a crushing defeat without them. The Chinese poured into the countryside by thousands and supplied weaponry to the North Koreans. Another significant war was the Vietnam War. Vietnam was also split by the 17th parallel. This was one of the only wars that America has ever lost. Although many people believe that the Cold War was one without casualty, in reality there were many. In fact, 3 million people were killed in the Korean War alone. On the other side of the world, regime changes were taking place. Fidel Castro had just overthrown Fulgencio Batista, and communism was taking over in Cuba. In America, Dwight D. Eisenhower had completed his second term, and John F. Kennedy became the 35th president. Along with the new president arose a new conflict, known as the Cuban Missile Crisis. Communism in Cuba was seen as a threat to America. Kennedy launched an invasion called the Bay of Pigs, which ultimately failed. Fearing more aggression from America, Fidel Castro looked to his elder brother, Russia, for nuclear protection. The involvement of Russia made this another conflict in which the US and Russia were competing for power. The stockpiling of nuclear weaponry in Cuba alarmed Kennedy, and he prepared his forces for an invasion. This turn of events put the world on edge, as a nuclear war could have been instigated. After much anxiety, both leaders came to their senses, and the Test Ban Treaty was signed. As a result, nuclear weaponry was removed from Cuba. There were many competitions between the United States and the Soviet Union. Of them, the space race was one of the most important. The space race was initiated by the Soviets with the launch of Sputnik. The Soviets then launched the first living thing to space, a dog named Laika. The US decided to counter this feat and started the Apollo program. This program launched 13 different missions that accomplished various tasks. One of these missions captured the first live television footage. In another, the US flag was planted on the moon, and many other feats were accomplished that pushed America ahead of Russia in the space race. Each country countered one another by accomplishing different goals. The Americans accomplished one of these goals by creating the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, more commonly known today as NASA. This was a major achievement in the space race, and this administration is still functioning today. It has launched many new missions that have uncovered extraterrestrial unknown. Without these developments in the Cold War, all knowledge of space would be close to nothing. The long-term effects of this space race were very beneficial to the newer generation. After the launch of Sputnik 1, the focus of education shifted to mathematics and sciences. More funding was put into education, and today math and science are emphasized so students can be more accomplished astronauts. There are many different perspectives on what events in the Cold War had the most impact, but undoubtedly, the arms race made some of the greatest contributions to the world. Throughout the Cold War, many new weapons were developed for more effective assaults. One of these was a helicopter, which was greatly used in the Korean War. Without this innovation, the capitalist forces might have lost Korea to the Soviet Union. Along with the helicopter, many advancements in weapons were made. The AK-47, the minigun, the Browning, the M16, and its cousin, the M4A1, were only a few of the weapons created and utilized in the Cold War. The nuclear bomb was one weapon that was very perilous, and if they were utilized, a nuclear war could have been started. The United States and the Soviets installed intercontinental ballistic missiles, or ICBMs, to show their strength. Each leader knew that if a missile was launched, a war that would result in the end of the world would start, so no missiles were actually launched. The missiles demonstrated fear rather than destructive power. This mass creation of nuclear weaponry was started when the Soviets constructed their first atomic bomb. The Americans countered this initiative and created the hydrogen bomb, which is said to have the power of 2,000 atomic bombs. The test was conducted on Atoll, a lagoon island.
On October the 30th, 1961,
Reports said that the island disappeared. Russia and America continued to develop more and more weaponry as the Cold War unfolded. America also created Star Wars, a system that would defend against ICBMs. If a missile was launched, the Star Wars system would intercept the oncoming missile with one of its own. In this prospect, America had the upper hand because this system made the Soviet missiles obsolete. At the time, submarines were not very effective, and as a result, they were not used often. The Americans took the initiative and used nuclear technology to create the first nuclear submarine. These submarines could stay underwater longer, travel faster, and were larger in size. These submarines could also launch ICBMs up to 2,000 kilometers. All in all, the Cold War changed the way we know weaponry today, from guns to nuclear submarines. Technology in the Cold War flourished, as innovations such as the computer were produced in rapid succession. The computer changed the world as we know it today. Without the computer, information could not be shared nearly as fast as it currently is. The computer paved the way for many new forms of entertainment and communication. In the quest for power, the US created the Internet. At first, the Internet was used only by the government as a form of private communication. In the beginning, it was called the ARPANET and only had one network, but it grew into a wide range of networks and became the Internet. Another large step forward in technology was the cell phone. This was the first portable device available to the public for communication. At first, cell phones were huge and very inconvenient. As the Cold War reached its height, cell phones became smaller and with more facilities. Along with the cell phone and the Internet, the GPS, or the Global Positioning System, was developed. This system was created to assist the military, and its purpose was to pinpoint one's exact location on Earth. Satellites were launched into space, and they created the network on which the GPS system is sustained. The Soviets named their GPS system GLONASS. The first Soviet GLONASS satellite in space was GEOF. On February 22, 1978, the first satellite for American NAVSTAR, or Navigation System with Time and Ranging, generally known as GPS, was launched. Now there are 31 GPS satellites in space, 7 more than the required number for a GPS to function properly. The Internet, the cell phone, and GPS are only a few examples of technological advances that came out of the Cold War. The Cold War was one of the only wars that have revolutionized world politics. The differences between the USSR and the United States ignited the world-changing battle known today as the Cold War. The Soviets and the Americans both wanted to spread their ideas around the world. One highlight of the American side of the war is the Red Scare. The Red Scare is the fear of communist spies in America. Joe McCarthy, to attract attention, created this mass hysteria about communists, saying, "One communist in America is one too many." But he became a hated man when it was found that he was lying.
I therefore conclude that Senator McCarthy's charges and insinuations are not only false, but utterly irresponsible.
Towards the end of the war, the Soviet Union collapsed and became Russia and other smaller countries. The Soviet Union spent vast amount of money on military strength rather than the benefit of its own country, thereby depleting its treasury. Furthermore, holes were being punctured in the Iron Curtain. Revolts against Soviet oppression were increasing, and more effort was diverted to suppressing these uprisings. The final domino was the fall of the Berlin Wall. The Cold War showcased the extremes of human behavior, symbolized by gigantic scientific strides, diplomatic achievements, the creation of NATO and the Warsaw Pact, and other interventions born out of mutual mistrust between the erstwhile World War II allies, all geared for the assured destruction of the other. As of present day, this bicentennial war holds the record for the most deaths in any war. All in all, many of the advancements that were created throughout the Cold War changed the world as we know it. The way that wars are fought today has changed. Now countries fight for political dominance more so than land expansion. This war, unquestionably, has made today's world the most advanced in every way possible.